wants to have him.
Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, early voting debacle in Montgomery County. And the Montgomery County Council bans the use of cosmetic pesticides. And whose shadow loomed over the Democratic debate this week? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Democratic Party insider Sam Statland, former chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, conservative commentator and Republican National Committee woman from Maryland, Nicolee Ambrose, and political strategist Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. The decision last month by the Montgomery County Board of Elections to relocate 2 early voting centers sparked heated charges of voter suppression by Democratic Party activists. And after 3 weeks of political wailing and hand-wringing, the Board of Elections backtracked slightly by retaining one of the 2 earlier sites. Sam, why was the decision of the Board of Elections to relocate one of the voting centers from Burtonsville to Olney and the other from Bethesda to Potomac such a cause for concern?
It seems to me the only cause for concern is that, as you know, with every Republican governor, you have a Republican majority board. Democrats, you have a Democrat majority board. And unlike past boards that worked well together in a nonpartisan way, I think this Republican board just said, because we can, and we might as well start a war over something that we don't need a war over and spend lots of money on an issue that didn't need to be fixed. It wasn't broken. Why fix it?
Actually, the current sites were picked on a partisan basis. So
no, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
They weren't. I was on the board. I was the chair of the board along with Nancy Dasik. And I will tell you that what we did was we went to our staff, the people that really run the elections, and said, look, we have to implement early voting. Please make recommendations to us. And we took their recommendations. We talked about it on the board in a much different way than this board did, and we picked the original 5 election sites, and then progressed to 2 more sites being added, again in a nonpartisan way. And when we had a board, we didn't sit at the board where you had Republicans on one side of the table and Democrats on the other side of the table. We were mixed together and we acted in partisan ways, and we certainly didn't go out and spend money on non-issues like this that eventually is going to lead to a lawsuit, because Annapolis still hasn't rectified this. Tuesday it's going to come back to this board where they're going to have to do something. Then it's going to go back to Annapolis again and probably wind up in the courts wasting money.
And I can recall testifying before the Board of Elections and having the recommendations for the sites that we proposed that have now been adopted being turned down. So this is revisionist. I understand. This is revisionist.
I want to ask the question, Sam. Yeah. In a county where there are no elected Republican officials at the county level, what difference does it make?
I think, well, in this particular instance, I think it makes a huge difference.
Why?
It makes a difference because, obviously, the citizens of the state of Maryland decided that they were, in ways, tired of partisan politics and elected a businessman, a Republican, Governor Hogan, to be the governor of the state, who I think has done a fine job, to try to take some of the politics out of governing. And here you have Mr. Hogan's ability to work with members of his party to continue that, to possibly get Republicans elected in Montgomery County. And instead of doing that in a positive way, we have these guys on this board Mickey Mousing around with things, hurting, in my opinion, Republicans' chances of getting elected because of Mickey Mouse politics for no reason.
Well, let me just step in here. To choose sites, you have to have a 4-to-1 supermajority. They didn't have this here. So then they went to the state this last week, and the state didn't have a 4-to-1 majority because it's Republicans, Democrats. So it's thrown back to the county. But I will tell you, the sites are, as I will say, to the victor go the spoils. The Republicans have a leg up right now. However, what galls me and most Democrats I know is that the chair of the election board and the other two Republicans met in a session by themselves without the Democrats, and it breaks all the sunshine laws. So that's the part that really, really irritates me. And Sam is right. For as long as I can remember, and I have a friend who chaired the board for 12, 16, whatever it was, there has never been this divide.
This is absolutely not true, because Potomac had been a recommendation in prior years that was turned down. Part of the problem is you have a concentration of sites. Most sites were renewed. So right now we have the argument is about moving a site from Chevy Chase, which is frankly a little hard to find, to Potomac, which it was frankly, when you look at the distances, is an uncovered area.
So in reality, I think the difference between Potomac and the Lawton Center is minuscule compared to moving the site, the Praisner Center.
The nearest site
that
to Potomac Village is more than 5 miles away.
Rockville isn't much.
Yes,
No,
but-
it's more than
but to
5
say
miles,
that
which
we're
is the
doing
criteria
this-
under the
it's
law.
To
close
say
to
that we're
5
doing
miles.
this because of population diversification
That
is
isn't
to
true.
me saying, look, let's look at our schools. Oh, we have population spread all over the county. Why don't we just equally divide the schools up? That's a ridiculous argument. The question is the purpose of early voting was to make it voting accessible.
Well, I'm so
That's in itself is an
I am
argument.
so happy that the previous board was so nonpartisan.
We
if
were.
if anyone actually believes that,
We were nonpartisan.
if anyone
Get outta
actually
here.
can believe that. But we're going to have to go
Totally.
on. We're going to talk about our next topic, which is even more interesting and fascinating to political insiders. And that is, last week the Montgomery County Council issued a ban on the use of certain pesticides on county-owned and private lawns, becoming only the second local government body other than Algonquin, Maine, population 1,300, to take such a step. Opponents, including lawn care companies and trade associations for the pesticide industry, argue that federal and state regulators would not allow products on the market unless they were safe if used correctly. Paul Jarinsky, president of the Cherrywood Homeowners Association, believes that Montgomery County is overreaching and is quoted as saying, "Are you telling me that these people have the expertise that state and federal governments don't have?" Nicolee, Mr. Jarinsky's question is relevant. So why did the council act?
I agree with him, and I would say to the Montgomery Council, what is up? This is absolutely radical. This is a really good example of why it's very harmful to residents to have a one-party monopoly. Look around, consider electing people who might represent you better. One of 2 jurisdictions in the nation, that's crazy, absolutely crazy. And furthermore, if we are talking about people who make Democrats happy, you have had nearly 8 years of an Obama administration running regulations at the federal level. You had 8 years of Democrat Martin O'Malley as governor with state regulations. So neither the federal nor state regulations are satisfactory. Please.
Susan, the Environmental Protection Agency is charged under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act with measuring the risks to the public before it allows a pesticide to be used in the United States. So why isn't that type of oversight good enough? Last time I checked, there were no scientists elected to this county council.
Well, as Democrats like to say, we don't need to be scientists, but we can consult with scientists. And so, let me finish.
Susan, you're always asking for the
was
federal
good,
government to intrude.
No,
why,
I do
why
not.
can't the federal government do the
A woman's right
regulation?
to choose. You deal with your own body. Never, ever, ever confuse me with that kind of person. Okay, first of all, frankly, I don't give a damn, because on my own yard the last few years, I've been using natural products, and it works. So, the comment from the council is that the federal government is far behind. Chemicals do cause cancer and a lot of other things. And you know what? The county led the way on smoking bans, on plastic bag bans, on a lot of things. And
Egg curtains.
trans fats, listing food nutrition on
Things that are healthy
that are
for our
healthy.
population.
And you know what? The rest of the country is following us.
Wait,
I think
Sam.
we're ahead again.
Sam, EPA does intensive scientific studies weighing the risks of all of these products before they allow them to be put on the market. They go through years of testing. If there was a risk from the infinitesimal exposures that people get, the federal government would have acted.
what I find most interesting about the whole discussion and every article I've read, does anybody have any idea of what is actually going to be banned? When people
There'll be
find out that they
regulations
can't
written
use
up.
their Weed Be Gone,
right?
2,4,5-D Weed Be Gone on my zoysia lawn. You know, there are others, but you know, some people might be upset about that, or they can't use the stuff that kills the stuff in the cracks and all that. You know, make it go away forever. That's
So
just
Mark,
terrible.
how far is Sam's Club and Walmart and all the stores in Virginia away from Montgomery County?
This is one more, except they may put up the police on the Montgomery
Like they
County.
do with fireworks.
They may do that at the bridge. No, this is just one more retail business that's going to get driven to Virginia that won't be here in Montgomery County.
Liquor, cigarettes, tobacco.
I mean,
now my
you know-
pesticides.
Gasoline.
There you go. And may I suggest, the county is welcome to do whatever they want to with your land. But to tell private homeowners that they can't take care of their own lawn and to try to regulate that, you know what? I'd love to see the Montgomery County Council send a letter of complaint to the Obama administration
I remember
telling them they're
that-
not doing their job at the federal
that
level.
old song.
I love
So let
that.
me ask you a question. If Montgomery County determined that alcohol was bad for you, but the federal government continued to allow the sale of it, would you support the ban of alcohol?
I think that at this point that was resolved back during Prohibition, so that's not going to
We
happen.
could go dry.
You mean there because
We
of
could.
because
And
because
Damascus
because of
even
the cons-
decided it
because
was
of the,
good for
the con-
them.
because of the constitutional amendment that
No, that was
that-
resolved in the ballot. And even Damascus, that was dry, decided that alcohol is safe. So we can now drink in all
I
of the
think in the
counties.
end, the citizens will be glad to know that their lawn is their lawn and my lawn is my lawn. And if I want to use 2,4-DT and pay a $25 fine, I might just as well do it.
All right, Sam.
And you
got
are
the,
on
you got the
record.
you got the last word on it. When we come back from this short break, was there a specter hovering over the stage at the first Democratic presidential debate? Stay tuned.
We did not lose the war in Vietnam. We quit. And it just made it so much harder for all those guys that were wounded and killed.
Me being a lieutenant, I had the responsibility of helping these guys get home.
I have always credited the military to learn more, to get more education.
You look and you see the guys beside you and around you. We realize you're all Americans. And no longer are you a particular race, you're a soldier.
I served as an Army nurse at the 95th Evacuation Hospital. I saw a lot of death and devastation.
All the neighbors were in my front yard. Welcome home, Stephen. All I wanted to do was go into the basement and hide.
When I was shot down, I became the first resident of the Hanoi Hilton. Our motto was that we're going to come out of there, but we're going to come out of there with our honor.
On Saturday, October 24th, join Bob Schieffer and Ike Liggett at the universities at Shady Grove as we honor our more than 13,000 Montgomery County veterans who served in the Vietnam War.
And welcome back. On Tuesday, the first Democratic presidential debate took place in Las Vegas, out of all places, the Wynn Resort. For a party that decries the evils of the rich, the opulence of the Wynn Hotel was nary an afterthought. Democrats have earned royal treatment, don't you know? On a stage where the 5 announced candidates running in the Democratic primary contest, it consisted of former Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, former Senator Lincoln Chafee of Rhode Island, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and last, former Governor Martin O'Malley of Maryland. The New York Times cooed in its editorial the next day that the grown-ups take the stage at the Democratic debate. Naturally, the Times were impressed with the performance of Secretary Clinton, had generally nice things to say about Senator Bernie Sanders, and didn't give the other candidates much of a mention in their editorial. Sam, the impression that one got from the debate of a party firmly committed to carrying on the agenda of the Obama administration. Is that the take you have?
No, that was not my take at all. My take was Bernie was to the left and Hillary was moving towards the middle. She dominated the debate. She's the one who showed the leadership, and she's going to be our next president.
We'll see. Sam, Susan, one of the unspoken issues Tuesday night was whether Vice President Joe Biden will enter the race. The speculation being if Mrs. Clinton didn't do well, he would be forced to announce. So, do you share the same opinion that Sam had, that Mrs. Clinton did well enough to forestall a Biden candidacy?
I think Secretary Clinton did a great job. However, Vice President Biden will do what Vice President Biden will do, and I think he's less likely. And one of the reasons I think he's less likely to do it, because there was concern about the Benghazi issue, and Congressman McCarthy sort of fixed that when he said, it was a witch hunt. So I think it did well. And I want to clarify something for our voters. CNN chose the Wynn Hotel, not the Democratic candidates.
Thank you. Now, Nicolee, were you struck by the fact that there was less diversity in the candidates running for the Democratic nomination, a bunch of old white privileged people, as opposed to the Republican Party, which has candidates who are Indian, who are African American, and of all different ethnicities?
That's a very true and telling point. You certainly have a huge age gap between what you're seeing in the Republican debates and the Democrat debates. But there were two other things that also struck me. If the Democratic Party is the old party of wannabe hippies in the 1970s, the thing that really did strike me was, number one, how lackluster Bernie Sanders' performance was for his poll numbers. That I truly found shocking. Secondly, how far the Democratic Party has left half of its base behind. And in that, I'm referring to Jim Webb's performance. I felt at times they wanted to tear him to shreds. And I cannot fathom how someone who would consider themselves really a moderate Democrat, which Webb really is, or even a conservative Democrat, could vote for any of the other candidates.
So are you guys still looking at Trump as your lead?
All right, so Mark,
who's going to lead the Republican ticket?
We'll get to it, Sam. We got to finish.
I'll answer, Sam.
Well, no, but
Go ahead.
you're going to answer.
I'll answer, Sam.
No. We're going to talk about
question.
how did Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley do Tuesday night?
I was surprised how, as not just the debate, but in general, as how poorly he's doing. And I think, as I've thought about it, is the real issue is I've yet to understand what Martin O'Malley's rationale is for why he's running for president.
You might say that about 12 of the candidates on your side, though.
No, actually, I would go through and break out the sort of the constituency they're talking about. I don't get what O'Malley, and I think, frankly, his poll numbers demonstrate
that.
Let me answer Sam. The Republican Central Committee is going to have a Florida-themed hospitality suite, because our sense, at least of my sense, is that the final analysis right now, it comes down to two candidates, either Marco Rubio or Bush.
Or as Stephen Colbert says, Bush, with the exclamation
Well, Rubio's funny.
Nicolee can disagree with that, but
well,
I think you might be right. But it was interesting. I did watch like 5 minutes of the after conversations, and there was Donald Trump talking. Or maybe it was the next day, and he said, what I found most interesting is that 3 of the people there should not be on the podium at all. Why were, Webb, Chafee, and O'Malley even there? And then he sort of sighed and he said, well, some might say that of our party too. There are a lot of people on there. But Nicolee, when you talk about Sanders' performance and didn't say much, we could say that pretty much about Donald Trump at the prior debates. He may be leading, but what is he saying?
I'm really excited by the Republican bench because it shows we have a bench. We have youthful governors, senators, Congress. It's very exciting to see who we have running. And I'm just excited that we have a fair and open process. I want to see people duke it out. I want to see who's going to run the best campaign. And I'm thrilled that we're a party that's actually allowing to people to fight and prove they're the best man or woman for the job.
But we are. And I think that there were those who thought it was a coronation. If anybody thinks this is a coronation, all you have to do is watch Bernie Sanders.
I would absolutely say it's a coronation because of how Bernie Sanders completely dismissed the #1 issue against Hillary Clinton. He gave her a free pass. He coronated her in that
issue
debate.
Has been dug up and dug through and on and on and on.
Frankly, we don't give about her damn.
I think that's
puff. It's
Secretary
nothing.
of State who should
be serious?
be in jail according to federal law. I have received State Department briefings. If you leave one piece of paper on your desk after work, you can lose your clearance and lose your job. She did this with no protection. The Russians and the Chinese have all of her emails, and we don't. That is an embarrassment. Any other person, if
You
this
do
were
not
a
know
fair
that the
level
Russian
playing
and
field-
Chinese have her emails.
Oh, I think we.
Yeah, no,
I think we do.
Yeah, guys.
Well, but the point is, you guys may want.
Who cares?
You guys may want to whistle past the graveyards and say it's a buried issue.
Right.
But this is an issue that's going to come up in the general election.
she's going to be
and
in
she
front
will,
of
No, she has
But
something
you know-
to answer.
She's going to be in
People-
front of Congress
she
in
did
2
not
weeks
answer,
explaining it again.
Sam, she has not answered the Benghazi question. Where was she the night of Benghazi? Where was the President of the United States on the night of Benghazi? Why did she perpetuate a false story to the people of the United States about a video when her entire team knew it was false? These are questions that the American people have not been adequately addressed and are not satisfied.
Well,
Well,
I
Casey,
think
in
going
2
back,
weeks, we're
let's
gonna
go-
find
Let's
out.
go back to the debate for a minute.
Yeah,
'cause
let's
that's
go
what we're
back to-
supposed
let's
be
go
talking
back
about.
to the debate.
I think that the Democrats showed that they weren't each other's best friends or their worst enemies. And there was a civility there. And I think after watching 2 Republican debates, there was a lack of civility. There were snide personal remarks all the time that were
Susan,
biting and cutting.
Politics is a
From one
contact
candidate.
is a contact sport, and as Mark is indicating, none of the people really wanted to take on Mrs. Clinton.
But the contact sport is the buffoon who's at the head. And you know what? I am hearing now political pundits and activist Republicans say, you know, he might very well be our candidate.
And you know why he might be the candidate? I mean, I don't have any horse in this race, but there is a lot of anger in the Republican Party about their leadership.
And for good reason.
And a
All
lack,
you have to do
and a
is
lack
look
of,
at
le-
the
and a-
speaker race.
and a lack of leadership
overall-
in coming out of the Congress. And people want someone who is not part of the establishment leading them. And
Republican or Democrat. The voters are tired of the same old people saying the same old stuff, the same old way, and the bottom line is nothing gets done.
Well, if
So
your
I
party's
think-
tired of it,
so
then why
you
are
can
you going to
say-
elect a standard bearer
Wait a
who's
second.
been on the stage
Wait a
for
second.
30
Just
years?
wait a
I
second.
agree with Casey.
You've got the Republicans, right? The Republicans as a group of people have people that say enough is enough. This guy's nice and he's right and he's refreshing. On the Democratic side, you've got Bernie really is the only alternate to Hillary. But in the end, somebody from the Democratic Party is going to race against somebody in the Republican
and
Party.
let the voters make the decision.
And the voters are going to decide whether they want same old, or they want new and refreshing. I think
And
Governor
buffoon.
Hogan is a perfect example of where Democrats crossed over and elected a Republican. And I would never have admitted that prior to the election before. But we had this discussion at a show prior to the election, and that's where you guys felt it was going to go, and it did. And I think that can continue.
So
Well,
for
we
this
gotta
cycle,
wrap it up.
if I may, it's not just anti-establishment, it's punish the establishment. And so I think that's obviously a huge danger to coordinate Hillary Clinton on the left because she is the quintessential establishment of 40 years. And then on the Republican side, I think we've got a free-for-all. May the best man or woman win.
Well, we're
A
going
melee at best.
we're going to find out over the next 6 or 7 months. Stay tuned for Party Shots when we come back from this short break. And welcome back now with Party Shots, Mark Uncapher.
Casey, if the Republicans had come up with the idea of early voting, Sam would probably be accusing us now of suppressing voting. In fact, the data has come in from a number of states, and it shows that early voting has a tendency to reduce turnout. It's not exactly what people expected, and now they look at the data and they think it comes from the fact that there's not the focus on a single day. So while there's nothing we can do with the county, it's a state level issue, let's recognize that one of the reasons turnout's down across the country and in Maryland is because of early voting.
Thank you, Mark. Sam Statland, your parting shot.
I'd love to respond to that, but I won't. Because, folks, we have to give a really, really big shout out to Mobile Medical Care Incorporated of Montgomery County. As you know, Mobile Medical Care is a 50-year-old nonprofit here in the county that has just received a designation of being a federally qualified healthcare agency. one of very few throughout the country, and the federal government is now going to provide $400,000 a year in funding to make sure that people in Montgomery County have adequate health care. And the core location is Aspen Hill, Maryland. If you believe that Aspen Hill, Maryland has been identified as being an underserved area of this county for health care, it is Montgomery County. So mobile medical care, got to give them a shout out, send them more money. We're going to provide health care here in the county to anyone who needs it.
Thank you, Sam. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
Well, we may think that this conversation about early voting sites is heated. Well, we ain't seen nothing yet, because this week our interim superintendent Bowers said that due to fiscal constraints, they're looking at options. And that includes the districts, the boundaries for Gaithersburg, Gruder, I believe it is, and Wooten, and they're looking at redrawing lines and taking some schools out of retirement. It is good. That's where the real fireworks start, when you start talking about boundaries for schools. And I also like to say I was devastated when I heard that Ed Walker from the big broadcast on WAMU is retiring because of health issues. I'm going to miss him every Sunday night.
Thank you, Susan. Nicolee, you're going to have to take us home.
All right. Well, my thoughts are with Governor Hogan. He just finished his cancer treatment this week, and by all accounts, things are going very well. And just kudos to him, keeping things running so smoothly. Revenues are up in Maryland, unemployment is down, and he's at nearly a 60% approval rating. So thoughts and prayers are with him for continued good health.
Thank you, Nicolee. Thank you, panel, for being here. Thank you to the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.